what John Paul II says about happiness and how money should be conceived. Who we are is more important than what we have.
It occurs to me as you say that there is this natural impediment to giving money away when you view your own sense of self-worth by how much money you have. Giving it away is like giving away yourself, and that is going to be really difficult to do.
Yeah.
Until you can disconnect your own sense of worth as being totally distinct from how much or how little money you have.
I have to see myself and my fulfillment and my value as a person as how well do I live in accord with those highest ideals that I believe will bring me fulfillment.
I think the good steward ought to act with virtue in everything they do as pertains to money. To see every opportunity, every decision with money as an opportunity to grow in virtue.
Welcome to the Your Life Podcast, where we talk about how to integrate the virtues into our life and our finances. My name is Anthony Delazari, Associate Investment Advisor.
Sean Gregory, Portfolio Manager.
AJ Sanson, Associate Investment Advisor.
We are with Servium Capital at I Private Wealth, and our goal is to serve you so that your finances may serve your goals and your goals may serve the good. So,
Banter?
well, I have a theory. Yeah. Because I played a couple of games of Monopoly last week, and I came to the realization, because Monopoly is a game, it never ends. It just goes on.
Well, it does end when there's an argument that breaks out.
See, yes, but this is the point that I'm about to make. So I have a theory.
You mean it ends relationships?
Yes. That Monopoly, it's a game that never ends. I'll be honest, I was the one who wanted to start the game because I hadn't played in a while, and the last couple of times that we played, I'd won, but that's typically because somebody has an argument and whatever. But yeah, no one really likes Monopoly that much. And I realized the goal of Monopoly can sometimes be to stop playing and just, you know what, let's end this thing. We know that nothing's going on. But it's interesting because you go back to what's the goal of Monopoly? And the goal of Monopoly is just to accumulate everything for yourself, which I think lends itself.
It's to bankrupt your opponent.
Exactly. But, everyone's going all over the place. There's mortgages here and there, and maybe sometimes one person ends up actually bowing out, but then you're just going back and forth. The two people who actually have the most, and everyone's miserable. And yeah, as you say, ends relationships. But I think, a massive lesson that I took away from playing last week was that sometimes the best way to play Monopoly is to stop playing or to just not play. I think that can lead into our conversation today about goal-driven wealth versus wealth accumulation, because we've talked a lot on this podcast about the proper place of money, that money should not be accumulated for itself, just like how that ruins the game of Monopoly.
That's the whole point of the game of Monopoly.
I know, but is it that enjoyable of a game? I feel like everyone will be like,
we have some house rules to make it a little bit more fun.
What do you guys do?
We don't respect the rule of you have to own all the properties to build.
Interesting, yeah.
So you can build on anything.
I like that a lot, actually.
As opposed to having the Monopoly
massively.
before you build?
Yeah.
Damn it, Sean, now I want to play Monopoly again.
Okay, but there's one tweak. Okay, you can buy, and then nobody can build the first time around the board.
Yeah.
And then you can only build when you land on one of your properties, and then you can build for any of your properties.
Oh, okay, interesting.
So it speeds it up massively.
Yeah.
Because Monopoly, like investment returns, is exponential.
Yeah.
Right? Rent on, I can't remember the properties. We play bird spottingopoly, so all the properties are birds. So rent on snowy egret is $20, but with 3 houses, it's $800. So it's designed so that people play the first few rounds and, chump change is exchanged. And by the end, people are just crushed.
Yeah.
So we get to the crushed part
very soon,
faster. And it makes it a lot of fun when everyone's got not hotels, but nests, which is the bird spotting equivalent.
Yeah.
And then you're going back with 750 here, 2,000 there. Oh, and we play with a lot more money.
Yeah.
So that we can accumulate a lot of properties and you can build on them, and it makes it a lot more exciting.
What other versions of Monopoly have you played?
There's every type of...
Star Wars Monopoly.
Star Wars Monopoly, okay.
Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings. Anything in existence, there's a Monopoly version for it. Yeah.
The two variations that I've played that are completely different than the, accumulation buy real estate would be... there's the millennial version of it.
What's that?
It's basically, it's like you're not trying to accumulate money, you're trying to accumulate experiences. is the whole endeavor of it. Like, and
This is an actual game?
yeah, it's an actual
You
game.
didn't just make this up right now?
No, I have a copy at home, just out of curiosity, because I remember it was hyped up and it was like unavailable for the longest period of
Well,
time.
how do you win? How do you crush your opponent?
It was basically how many experiences the experiences and how many selfies you took.
So then selfies and experiences.
Something
are
of that
currency.
sort. Yeah.
You know what experience I like? Crushing my opponent at Monopoly.
The one that felt crushing was a socialist monopoly, which is like the antithesis of monopoly in itself. It was not fun whatsoever.
How does that work?
It was not fun whatsoever.
Yeah. I have to say, playing bird spotting Monopoly, I have learned so many bird facts and like identifying different bird species and appreciating. Do you know John Audubon? I think his name's Audubon. He does the bird sketches, and they're beautiful.
So it's artistically
So
beautiful.
the whole thing is it's a beautiful board, and these birds are like beautifully illustrated.
But back to Tommy Monopoly.
Kami Monopoly, yeah.
How does that work?
I played it
Collect
once.
your rent and then share it with everyone.
Yeah, it was exactly that. You
You actually don't own anything.
That's right.
Yeah.
But
Wait, really?
And so basically there's a communal pot of sorts. And so basically you go on the board and you have to do something, but then you have to withdraw from the communal pot. And then it was basically what it ended up happening is that you try to get privileges for yourself that negatively affects everyone else, and then just everyone's upset at the whole game. We just played one round. I was like, this is no fun whatsoever.
Yeah.
I feel depressed. Let's just put
Sounds
this
like
away.
actual communism.
Yes.
I think that maybe that was it was a subversion goal. It was just trying to undermine people's infatuation.
Yeah, it
with
was not
socialism.
fun. It was not fun. Not fun at all.
Yeah. Interesting.
All right. Yeah. Speaking of money and accumulation, I think was your segue, Anthony.
A little bit, yes.
Yeah. Which is a good segue.
I didn't even mean for it to happen that way. It just ended up being there.
So we have talked previously about money-driven goals versus purpose-driven goals. We have talked about the purpose of money, which is to be a good steward. I mean, amongst other things, but really at the heart of it, to be a good steward. Now let's talk about what it means to be a good steward.
Let's go. Who wants to go first?
Who wants to go first?
Sean, this is your topic.
Okay,
Yeah,
let's roll
totally your
dice.
topic.
Let's roll dice.
Shall we?
Highest roll gets to go first.
And if you roll doubles, you get an extra turn.
All right. Okay. I have thoughts. Sure. Okay. These are the tenets that I think represent being a good steward of your money. The first is giving well. And I put it first on my list for a reason, because typically when a person or family is going through their budget, where they think about what they can afford to give is right at the very end. They go through, these are our fixed expenses.
What's left?
These are our our want to have expenses. What's left over? That's the amount we can give away. And I would suggest the good steward flips it completely. They start with, this is how much we would like to give. And then they budget around it. And there are the things that they have to give up, which is good. But the priority should be, we set the giving goal at the beginning, at the outset, and then, you can't do anything with fixed expenses, so it's likely some of those variable want to have expenses that you're going to have to cut. But I think that is the proper order of doing those things. So I set my order with giving first.
But isn't that taxes?
Taxes first?
No. I was just making a joke.
Giving to the
Taxes.
government first?
Yeah.
Technically, yes.
Yeah. No, I was just making a cheeky joke.
All right.
No, I 100% agree. I think that is the best way to look at your money, because it automatically makes you be generous first, to do something that is uncomfortable first. And then it becomes a lot easier to spend a little bit less at the grocery store, to not buy the pair of shoes that you want this month, to hold off until next month, whatever that is, to have that little small mortification, death to self, and then to go on to really properly be detached from money, to set that giving goal first, and then everything else follows after.
I like the prioritization of generosity. Is that, like, I have certain charitable causes that I like to prioritize, that I think they do great work, and to begin the month knowing that you're contributing to this great endeavor just gives more meaning for the month. That gives you kind of that motivation. Is like, yeah, this is why I work, is to provide family, but also to give to great causes so that they can do great work too. So making that the top priority.
Yeah, and I think the other interesting thing there is what John Paul II says about happiness and how money should be conceived. Who we are is more important than what we have. And when we start our budget or our spending habit by thinking, what can I give away? What is that goal? You are being generous as opposed to having money. And so it automatically starts off on the right foot of being as opposed to having.
Mm-hmm. And it changes your implicit perception of what giving is. If it's at the end, you're saying, this is a nice to do, maybe, if there's enough. But at the beginning, you say, this is important. This is a have to do.
Prioritizing it.
Yeah.
I had an interesting realization with that yesterday, because it dawned on me that every single time that I've ever been taught about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I've maybe encountered it once or twice in high school and at least 3 times in university. So I've not read exactly what Abraham Maslow said about his hierarchy of needs. I've only ever been taught it, but I think that how something is taught is about as good as how people understand it. Whether or not that's the reality of it, I think you do have to kind of take those two things hand in hand. But I've always been taught that you need to have these basic things before you can get to your higher goals, is the premise of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I think there's a bit of an issue with that because, as you say, it's going to lead to this, I have to look after my expenses first, these basic things, and then I can look after these higher things of self-fulfillment and attainment and realization. But I think the problem there is that it kind of does an injustice to the person in that, why do we want to have these things if not for some purpose, for some greater purpose, or something beyond ourselves? Mm-hmm. When we think, I have to have all of this together before I can do this, before I can do this, before I can do this, mm-hmm. I think it creates unnatural interior barriers to satiating the longings of our heart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, I think I heard Jordan Peterson say that Maslow's hierarchy of needs has been completely disproven as like not a real thing.
Well, but
it's exactly to your point. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, if you have an animalistic understanding of the human person,
it makes total sense.
Then 100%. It's materialistic. Yeah, you have to have these things before we can even dream of going for that.
But then you look at these Franciscan friars who give up everything, who choose to live in the cold, to live with uncomfortable clothes and eat bad food so that they can invert their perception of the world that wealth is in giving.
Yeah.
And how can you ever explain that with Maslow's hierarchy of needs? You can't possibly.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree.
Yeah.
But I think the danger there is that, where do we start when it comes to setting good goals? It's not, as I said, in what I do and have, but who I want to be. And so we need to understand how we see ourselves. And our temptation can be to identify ourselves with what we do and what we have, because it's understandable and tangible and very easily communicable. Whereas who we are goes deeper because it speaks to our nature and what will bring us true fulfillment. But this is communicated in actions, and I think it's experienced in a much more subjective way. Right? If you want to be generous, it's kind of boastful to say, hey, everyone, I donated $1,000 last month. Right? But if you want to show your generosity, it's much more subjective. It is much more on a one-to-one personal basis of me saying, hey, what can I do for you today? And sincerely meaning that and following that up. And I think that's a lot more difficult of a thing to do as opposed to saying, I work in whatever. Or, I drive a nice car. Or, my house is however many thousand square feet. So I think that subjective, more personal nature of, fundamentally it's living the virtues, speaks much more to who we are as people, as opposed to just a general animalistic conception of, yes, I have my basic needs looked after. And then, what comes after that? What comes after that?
Yeah. It occurs to me as you say that there is this natural impediment to giving money away when I don't think anyone does this on purpose. It's totally implicit when you view your own sense of self-worth by how much money you have.
Yeah, I think that's what I was getting at.
Giving it away is like giving away yourself.
Yes.
Your value of yourself, right? And that is going to be really difficult to do.
Yeah.
Until you can disconnect your own sense of worth as being totally distinct from how much or how little money you have.
Yep. And to do that, I think you need to, fully invert Maslow's hierarchy of needs to say my worth is not contingent on do I have these basic factors of security and shelter and
And you go even further and say I will actively give up some of those things.
Exactly. I have to see myself and my fulfillment and my value as a person as how well do I live in accord with those highest ideals that I believe will bring me fulfillment. What is that objective framework that I am using to assess how well I'm living my life?
So start there and working backwards.
Yeah. So who am I as opposed to what do I have?
Yeah. Okay. I think the next tenet of being a good steward is preparing for your death. So preparing for your death is you write a will, you name executors. If there are trusts that need to be established, you've done that. If you have a business that needs to be handed over, everything's arranged ahead of time. If your family cannot function without your income, they depend upon your income. You're taking care of your future widow by, arranging for life insurance if it needs to be done, or arranging family ahead of time, right? This is not something you do for yourself because you will be dead, and it is not for your benefit. It is for the benefit of those around you, right? It's something we can do out of love to make everybody's life easier without you. Because for anyone who's ever gone through an estate where there wasn't a will and things were not taken care of ahead of time,
it could be chaos
it's
for
a
the family.
Nightmare. And it can tear that family apart too.
Yeah, absolutely.
As everyone has a different sense of what your intentions were, and they can bicker and they can argue, and there can be major conflicts. And people, I've seen families where siblings don't talk to each other, haven't talked to each other for years after a parent died because they disagreed about how the estate was broken up or distributed. So, preparing for your death, extremely important. Good stewardship action. Minimizing taxes, I think, is a extremely good goal, high priority for a steward. And I'm going to call out the principle of subsidiarity here.
I like this concept.
Which is to say that economic decisions should be made at the lowest possible level.
Of competent authority.
Yeah. And who knows how better to raise your kids than the parents? Who knows how better to use money for the family than the family itself?
Business than the business
or
owner.
The business, exactly. Yeah. And that we are given capacity and tools, reasonable tools, to minimize our taxes within the realm of the law. To use those tools legitimately available to us to minimize our taxes as much as we reasonably can, because my own personal feelings about how the government uses money aside, you and your family can use that money much more efficiently and better than some authority
Third party.
In a different state, city, country. Well, not country, but whatever it is. Okay, minimize taxes. Good goal. I think the good steward manages risk. Usually when we talk about risk management, the idea that comes into most people's heads first is the risk of losing my money because I made a bad investment. Usually from that's usually what happens when we talk about risk management and money. But risk should be seen on a spectrum. So there are risks of doing too much, and that may be speculating on some wildly risky investment and losing all your money, which was a poor risk management decision. And then there's the risk of doing too little, which is to do very little with your money, or to just leave it sitting in the bank account. Let alone those other ideas of, we should put it to good work or to put it to good productive use for its own sake. Just managing your own finances and leaving your money in the bank subjects you to the risk of losing ground to the cost of living every year. And year to year, it's a very small risk. 2% here, 3% there. But over the course of 20, 30 years, the value of your money will fall by 50%. And so that's almost a guaranteed risk. I mean, I can't remember the last year we had deflation. So to do nothing with your money is to take a guaranteed but small loss, and to do too much is to very likely bear a significant loss. So an appropriate level of risk management is somewhere in the middle. Not doing too much, but also not doing too little, to be aware of those risks of doing too little. Any thoughts there?
I think the consideration of timelines too is like, it would make sense that you have your money's relatively accessible as cash in a savings account, especially if you need to use it within a short period of time. But an important consideration. Go ahead.
No, I don't want to cut you off.
But I was considering, like, if you're
Just get excited.
I would say, if you know these certain portion of your monies don't be needed for, like, decades from now, then the consideration, as opposed to just leaving a bank account, is to look for opportunities for it to be more productive, to create the opportunity for that excess at a later date, so it could be used for whatever you need to accomplish, but also be able to give more likeliness to give away too. But you were going to say,
well, it's 100% right. You said it better than me. It's what is the most pertinent risk for this particular goal in this particular situation. Mm-hmm. I need money for a new car next year. Then you should absolutely be willing to bear the inflation risk, mm-hmm. because it's very small in the short term. And you absolutely should not bear investment risk because it's extremely volatile year to year. So taking the lesser of two evils, you would have your money in something very low risk, very low interest, but and taking that inflation risk because the timeline suggests that is the more prudent risk to take. Whereas a long-term goal, 20, 30, 40 years, over a long time span, investment risk is actually significantly less than it is over a short time span because you have time diversification. The good years balance out the bad years. But that corrosive effect of inflation, that insidious effect of inflation over a long time span is enormous. So which is the better risk to take? Well, year-to-year investment risk, because you don't need it for 30 or 40 years or whatever it is. Exactly. Okay. Any thoughts, Anthony?
For the sake of summarizing the risk idea, can I restate risk?
Hold on. Can we talk about other risks?
I was just going to say, like, another big risk that could be mentioned is, or no, what was the context of the whole discussion there?
Managing risks?
No. Before like
the full spectrum of risks.
No.
Risk of doing too much, too little.
Yeah, I'll try and summarize that really quick. But what was the, like, why do we need to say managing risk?
Like a good steward manages risks.
Oh, yes.
As opposed to the two extremes, like not taking it all or taking way too much.
Yes. So I'd also say, like, a good steward manages risks because you have the risk of doing too much, where you can put money into a risky investment and you have taken on too much risk. That was imprudent. But you also have the risk of doing too little, where you lose out to inflation.
Exactly. There are other risks that
I just want to have that in there just in case. I'm like, this is dragging.
This is confusing. Yeah, perfect. Fair enough. There are other risks that the good steward should consider. The risk of early death, and for the people who are dependent on your income, what that means for them. The risk of disability and what that could mean in your own life and how you potentially could think about that ahead of time. Any other risks?
I think of, like, there are times where the unexpected happens and an unexpected expense comes about and the risk of that possibility.
Yeah, so having ample liquidity available to you, that your money's not all locked away in real estate or private investments or something where you do not have access to, it's locked up, right? In the event that you lose a job, in the event that your house burns down and you don't have insurance or whatever it is. Does that happen to anyone? I guess you have a wildfire, that could happen.
Yeah.
But where I was going with that is, say that an unexpected event were to occur, but the only resource you have available is the ones that were earmarked for the future 20, 30 years from now. It's understanding that market risk. I need to access those monies which were originally earmarked for the future. I need to take it now and just bear the loss that may incur as a result of that for caring for needs now.
Mm-hmm. Nothing. Okay.
What else do you have, Sean? What else?
Okay. Before I get to virtue, acting with virtue, planning ahead, thinking ahead. It doesn't have to be as precise as my retirement goal is X dollars, although eventually you can get there. It just has to be, not losing the forest for the trees, taking your head out of the day-to-day grind, thinking ahead to the big picture, future liabilities in your life. I'm going to need to save for the kids' education. I'm going to need to, whatever it is. My parents are going to need additional care at some point in their life because I know they've got this problem. And the earlier you can take steps to address saving towards that goal, the easier it is. So as an act of stewardship of your own money, I think we have a duty and responsibility just to think about those big picture things.
Sean, what's your last point on?
I think the good steward ought to act with virtue in everything they do as pertains to money. To see every opportunity, every decision with money as an opportunity to grow in virtue. So as we talked about at the beginning, what is giving? It's an act of liberality. What is preparing for your death? It's an act of charity, doing something out of love for those around you. Minimizing taxes, managing risks, setting goals, planning ahead. Those are acts of being a prudent steward of your money. Preparing yourself for the opportunities for magnificence. Just not even necessarily seeking them out, but knowing that at any time something can come up where it will be expensive, something large will be asked of you, and it will be for something where you get no economic benefit out of it. And merely thinking about that ahead of time gets the wheels turning, and you at least take a step or two down that path as opposed to not thinking about it at all. And then the opportunity comes up and, you are stewing in this indecision. I would like to do this, but I can't really afford it. Or can I really afford it? And maybe that opportunity is gone because you, what's the word?
Squander
it. I'm trying to think whiffed on it. Got too many baseball references in my head right now.
I wonder why.
You waffled on it. And then the opportunity's gone. Yeah.
I like it. I think, given our discussion from the last podcast that we recorded, when you mentioned that your call to be a good steward is proportionate to the wealth that has been entrusted to you, I think after having heard a lot of these ideas, I would agree that there is an increasing importance to make sure that these things are looked after and conceived that way, or thought of that way. That being said, I still 100% believe that across the wealth spectrum, it's almost more important. Maybe not more important. No, it might be more important for people, because everyone at some point in their lives is going to be at a lower income bracket, squeeze for money, whatever that is, to start to work on those things at that time. Because all it really is the ability to view wealth and money in the right way as a means of exercising the virtue, as opposed to saying, once I get to this amount of comfort, once I get to this financial goal, then I will start acting in this way, or I'll have that perception of stewardship, or take kind of what I like and leave the rest. But I don't think that's the right way to
and that idea of being proportional with wealth, I think naturally our culture and society will tend to see increasing amounts of wealth. We have a connotation that this comes with increasing levels of comfort, security, freedom, but we don't tend to think that this comes with increasing levels of responsibility, which is what we should. We should see this more as a weight, a burden, to do something with it well. And the more that is, the increasing levels of wealth that you have, the more is expected of you.
I like it. AJ, anything else to add?
You took notes this time.
It was a completely different direction of the conversation that I had in mind.
Well, let's save it for another show.
Yeah, we'll do it.
Brilliant.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for listening. I'm Anthony.
I'm Sean.
I'm AJ.
Have a good day.
This podcast has been prepared by Sean Gregory, who is a portfolio manager, AJ Sanson, and Anthony De Lazari, who are associate investment advisors for IA Private Wealth Inc. Opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the portfolio manager and investment advisors only, and do not necessarily reflect those of IA Private Wealth Inc. IA Private Wealth Inc. is a member of the Canadian Investor Protection Fund and the Canadian Investment Regulatory Organization. IA Private Wealth is a trademark and business name under which IA Private Wealth Inc. operates.